Graham tapped his fork against his wine glass while his mother was still chewing. "To Monday," he said. Vivian dabbed the corners of her mouth and lifted her glass. "To a house that finally knows who's in charge." It was Sunday night. We were sitting at my dining table eating the roast I had ordered, picked up, reheated, sliced, and arranged so Graham could call it a family dinner. "Starting tomorrow," Vivian said, "I'll be running the house." Graham toasted her. By breakfast, Inez, our housekeeper, had forwarded me Vivian's new rules. I read all 3 pages while Graham showered upstairs. Every insult had been formatted into cheerful bullet points, including one about my habit of sleeping in the glass-walled breakfast room after arguments. I had told only my husband why I did that. Then I opened the Smart Lock app and saw that Graham had given his mother permanent access at 3:14 Sunday afternoon. He hadn't hoped I would agree. He had already promised I would. What else had he promised her? Inez's message sat beneath the attachment. "Nora, please confirm whether I should follow these. Mrs. Mercer says you approved them." I looked across the kitchen at the green glass bowl on the entry table. My keys were in it, along with Graham's spare car key and the tiny brass tag from the locksmith who had changed our locks 7 years earlier. Vivian's rules called the bowl sentimental clutter and instructed Inez to box it for donation. I typed back, "Follow our existing agreement. Don't move anything. Please save every instruction she sends you." The dots appeared immediately. Thank God. She put cumin under C and paprika under P like the spices are filing cabinets. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Graham came into the kitchen knotting his tie, damp hair combed into obedient lines. He was handsome in the polished, slightly unfinished way that made strangers want to help him. One cuff was unbuttoned. His coffee cup waited beneath the machine because I had set it there the night before. He pressed the button and glanced at my phone. "Everything okay?" "Inez sent me your mother's rules." His hand paused beneath the stream of coffee. Just for a second. "She sent those already? Was she supposed to wait until after she moved my things?" "Nora." "That's what it says." He carried his cup to the island. Mom can be blunt. She instructed Inez to photograph the pantry every Friday. That's excessive. And report what I buy. I didn't see every detail. She's banning work calls after 5. His jaw shifted as he sipped. "No one is banning you from anything. The document is called Mandatory Household Standards." He set down the cup. "You know how she writes. Everything sounds like bylaws. Why does she know I sleep in the breakfast room after we fight?" The refrigerator hummed behind him. A drop of coffee rolled down the white side of his cup, and he wiped it with his thumb. "She knows we've had a hard year." That wasn't my question. I talked to my mother. About where I sleep. Sometimes I need perspective. Vivian's phrase in the rules had been emotional theater. I remembered using nearly those words once, crying into Graham's shirt and apologizing for being dramatic. He had stroked my back and said I never had to apologize for needing somewhere safe to breathe. He picked up his briefcase. "What did you promise her?" I asked. "Help, that's all." "With what?" "With getting this place under control." He said it gently, which made it worse. "This place has been under control for 9 years. You're working constantly. I'm working constantly. We miss payments to vendors, food goes bad, we're always looking for something. Mom offered to help us get organized. We missed one landscaper invoice because you put it in your glove compartment. And somehow that became my fault for 6 weeks. I paid it. I paid it. You handed me the envelope." His phone buzzed. He glanced down and relief flickered across his face. "I have a 9 o'clock, he said. "Can we try not to turn this into a war before Monday even starts?" "It is Monday. You know what I mean." He kissed the air near my cheek and left. The front door closed. 3 seconds later, his keys chimed against the green glass bowl. He had forgotten them. He came back in, grabbed them without looking at me, and left again. My mother had found the bowl at a church rummage sale before Graham and I met. The glass was thick and uneven, darker at the rim, with a trapped bubble near the bottom that looked like a tiny silver coin. She kept it beside her own front door, full of keys, loose buttons, and grocery coupons. When I moved out, she gave it to me because, she said, every home needed a place where people announced they were back. The first time Graham dropped his keys into it, we were living in a one-bedroom rental over a dentist's office. He had looked at me and said, "That's the sound of permanent." At 8:05, someone tried the front door. The lock beeped twice, then rejected the code. I had changed Vivian's access from permanent to inactive while Graham was upstairs. The doorbell rang. Vivian stood on the porch in cream slacks, holding a stack of clear storage bins. Behind her, a rideshare driver was removing 2 suitcases and a garment bag from the trunk. I opened the door but didn't step aside. "Your code isn't working," she said. I disabled it. She adjusted the bins against her hip. Her lipstick was the same deep red as the ceramic rooster she had once given us and later complained I never displayed. "I see," she said. "Well, that's the first thing we'll correct." "What are the suitcases for?" "The guest room." "For how long?" She looked past me into the house. Graham didn't explain. "No. That boy. He avoids details when he thinks people will react emotionally." The driver set the suitcases beside the porch column. Vivian thanked him warmly, tipped him in cash, and waited until his car pulled away before looking at me again. "I'm not having this discussion on the porch." "That makes one of us." She shifted the bins. One slid sideways. I caught the bottom before it fell, an old reflex that annoyed me as soon as I did it. "Thank you," she said. I let her in. She walked directly to the entry table and stopped at the green bowl. "This is the one," she said. "The one what?" I mentioned in the email. "I saw. It crowds the table. It's 6 inches wide. It sets a tone. It holds keys." Vivian lowered the bins and removed a blue folder from the top one. Inside were printed copies of her rules, plastic sleeves, and labels produced by a machine she appeared to have purchased specifically for the occupation of my house. "This will be easier if you don't interpret every practical suggestion as criticism. You wrote that my work materials create visual anxiety." "They do." "For whom?" "For anyone entering the room." "You mean you?" "I mean Graham. He can't relax with invoices and fabric samples everywhere. He works in an office downtown. He lives here. So do I." Vivian gave me the patient look she used with servers who described specials too quickly. "Exactly. Which is why the house cannot revolve around one person's preferences." I looked at her folder, her suitcases, and the label on the top storage bin, "Nora, Review." "Where's the bin for your preferences?" Her mouth tightened, then unexpectedly curved. That was almost funny. I wasn't joking. I know. That's why it was almost funny. She bent, picked up the glass bowl, and turned it over. The keys shifted and scraped. "Put that down. It has a chip." "I know. You could cut yourself." "I haven't managed it in 30 years. She returned it to the table, though not in the ring of sunlight where it had been. She placed it near the back edge, half hidden behind the lamp. I moved it forward again. Vivian watched me do it. "Graham said you might need a day," she said. "To adjust? To understand that accepting help is not surrender. I haven't accepted anything." Her phone rang. She answered in the bright voice she reserved for people who hadn't disappointed her yet. "Yes, we're starting this morning," she said, walking toward the guest room. "No, Thursday is still perfect. Graham will have the whole group here." I followed her. "What's Thursday?" She covered the phone. "The partnership dinner." "What partnership dinner?" "Graham's dinner." I heard that part. She turned away. 6:30, she told the caller. "And Nora will handle the room so it should look beautiful." She ended the call before I could speak. "Who was that?" "Alan Decker, Graham's potential business partner. I had met Alan twice, both times while fixing errors in presentation decks Graham had brought home after midnight." "You invited Alan Decker here?" "Graham did. And told him I would design the dinner. That's what you do. For clients." Vivian smiled. "Then perhaps send Graham an invoice." She entered the guest room and opened the closet. My winter coats hung along one side, the other held 2 folding tables, linen bags, and boxed centerpiece hardware from a gala I was preparing for Saturday. "These need to go," she said. "I need them Friday." "Then take them to your office." "The breakfast room is my office." "Not after today." I stood in the doorway as she unzipped her garment bag. "You don't get to decide that." "Graham and I have already discussed the allocation of space." "Graham doesn't get to decide it alone either. He owns half this house. So do I." "Yes," she said, smoothing a sleeve, "but he's the one asking for help." That landed differently. "Help with the house?" Vivian checked the shoulder of her blouse as though she hadn't heard me. "With the house, Vivian?" "Among other things." I waited. She removed a navy dress and hung it between 2 of my coats. "You should ask your husband." My phone rang from the kitchen. A client. I went back, took the call, and carried my notebook into the breakfast room. Morning light filled the glass on 3 sides. My sample boards leaned neatly against the far wall. A long oak table occupied the center, scarred near one end where Graham had once set down a hot roasting pan. I had been angry about that mark for a month. Later, I began resting my wrist in it during calls. I was discussing candle heights when Vivian entered with a roll of labels. "Nora," she whispered loudly, "where are the extra hangers?" I covered my phone. "Hall closet." "There aren't enough. I'm on a call." "I can see that. I'm asking where you keep the good wooden ones." "We don't." She looked toward my samples. "How long will you be?" I stared at her until she left. 10 minutes later, a label appeared on the glass door. "Family breakfast room." No business storage. My client was describing a narrow venue entrance, so I wrote down measurements and kept my voice even. When the call ended, I peeled off the label. Vivian had placed 3 more on the pantry, 1 on the linen closet and 1 on the cabinet where Graham threw warranty manuals, batteries, menus, and anything else he wanted to stop holding. "Action items, Nora," that one said. I took a photograph. At noon, Inez arrived. She was 56, 5 feet tall, and capable of making a vacuum cleaner feel like a personal threat. She came through the side door carrying her lunch and paused when she saw the labels. "Office supply store exploded?" she asked. "Management change." I heard. Vivian emerged from the guest room. "Inez, wonderful. We're going to begin with the kitchen. I sent you the revised checklist." I saw it. "And the pantry photos will need to be taken before you leave on Fridays." I clean the pantry. I don't photograph it. "It's for accountability." "Whose?" Vivian blinked. Inez looked at me. "Same schedule?" "Same schedule." "Same work?" "Same work." Vivian folded her arms. "Graham authorized these changes. Inez set her lunch in the refrigerator. Graham once authorized me to wash a wool rug in the machine. Despite myself, I smiled. Vivian did not. "You work for this household." "I work for Nora. Her name is on my checks." I hadn't known I needed to hear that until I did. The front door opened at 5:40. Graham's keys hit the green bowl, hard and familiar. He found the 3 of us in the kitchen. Inez packing her supplies, Vivian holding a label maker, and me canceling the automatic grocery order that included his coffee, his protein bars, and the mineral water his mother liked. He loosened his tie. "Why?" he asked carefully. "Does it feel like someone died?" Vivian placed the label maker on the counter. "Your wife," she said, "disabled my key." Graham looked at me. I closed the grocery app. "Your mother says she's staying in our guest room." He went still. "How long?" I asked. Vivian looked at him too. Graham set his briefcase down beside the green bowl. "Nora," he said, "we need to talk about Mom's condo." Inez picked up her tote bag. "I can come back tomorrow," she said to me, "or I can stay while you talk." Vivian gave a short laugh. "We're capable of having a family conversation without staff supervision." "Sure," Inez said. "That's what the labels tell me." She touched my elbow on her way out. Graham waited until the side door closed before turning to his mother. "You told her about the condo?" She asked why I had suitcases. You could have said you were staying a few days. I don't lie about where I sleep. Could one of you explain? I asked. Graham rubbed the back of his neck. Mom accepted an offer on her condo. I received an offer, Vivian corrected. It's effectively sold. It is sold when money changes hands. Until then, it is under contract. When did you put it on the market? Last month, Graham said. I looked at him. He had spent 3 Saturdays helping Vivian sort out storage. He'd come home complaining about dust, traffic, and the number of decorative pillows one woman could own. I had ordered dinner each time and rubbed his shoulders while he ate. The staging company starts Wednesday, Vivian said. They don't want me living there during showings. So you're living here? Temporarily. How temporarily? Neither answered. 6 weeks? I asked. 6 months? It depends on what she finds, Graham said. Vivian looked at him. We haven't discussed what I'm finding. There are some nice apartments near your club. I have no intention of renting. Something passed between them. Graham reached for his briefcase and missed the handle on the first try. What aren't you telling me? I asked. Nothing, he said too quickly. There are pieces still moving. Then name one. He looked toward the kitchen as if an answer might be labeled in a cabinet. The partnership, Vivian said. Graham's head came up. Mom, what partnership? I asked. Alan wants me to buy into the firm. The firm was Decker Shaw Advisory, though Shaw had retired years earlier. Graham had consulted through them for almost 4 years. Every January, he said Alan was thinking about restructuring. Every February, he said nothing happened quickly in professional services. How much? It's not final. Enough that your mother has to sell her home? Vivian crossed to the island and straightened the label maker so it lined up with the grout. My condominium is larger than I need. The maintenance fees are ridiculous, and most of my capital is sitting in rooms I don't use. So you're loaning him the money. We're discussing a family investment. Graham? He put both hands on the back of a stool. The buy-in is $120,000. I have some of it. How much is some? Nora, I came home 10 minutes ago. You made this arrangement before you came home. 35. I waited for the rest. 35,000, he said. His business savings had held nearly 60 at the end of the previous year. I knew because I had helped him prepare a cash flow summary when he wanted a new accountant. What happened to the other 25? A couple clients paid late. Which clients? Why are you interrogating him? Vivian asked. Because apparently his office, your condo, and our guest room are all part of the same conversation, and I'm the only one who wasn't invited. Graham's mouth hardened. There were expenses. There are always expenses. That's why I spent 3 weekends fixing your invoices. I didn't ask you to. He had. He had put his laptop on my lap one Saturday morning and said, You understand this stuff better than I do. Vivian's eyes moved between us. This is exactly the tone I'm trying to change. I turned to her. Your rules aren't changing my tone. They aren't my rules alone. Graham stared at the floor. The room went very quiet. You helped her write them, I said. I gave her context. The line about sleeping in the breakfast room? I told her we weren't communicating. You told her where I go when I don't feel safe with you. His expression flinched at the word safe. That makes it sound like I hurt you. You did. You know what I mean. I did. He meant he had never frightened me in a way he considered serious. He had only followed me from room to room explaining why my feelings were unfair until I closed a glass door between us. Then he had told his mother I was performing. Vivian opened her folder. The purpose of the standards was to reduce friction. Did you write outsourcing basic wifely consideration, or was that his contribution? Graham pushed away from the stool. I never said that. Then you read it and left it in. I did not review every word. You reviewed enough to tell Inez I'd cooperate. His face changed. There it was. Not shame exactly, but irritation that I had found the seam in the story. I said you might react at first. At first. I was trying to keep everyone calm. by assuring your mother I would eventually submit. Vivian closed the folder. There is a substantial difference between submission and compromise. Compromise is when I'm in the room. Graham exhaled through his nose. Can we stop using courtroom language? This isn't courtroom language, it's English. He began pacing, 5 steps to the pantry and 5 back. Alan's been giving me more responsibility. This partnership changes our future. Mom offered a way to make it happen without a bank taking half the value in interest. And in return, she stays here while she transitions. Vivian's silence was so complete it seemed rehearsed. I looked at her. What do you get? I get to see my son stop working for other people. What do you get in this house? She lifted her chin. Respect would be a pleasant start. I slept in the breakfast room that night. Graham knocked once around midnight, then opened the door before I answered. He wore flannel pants and an old Decker Shaw t-shirt. In the reflection of the glass, he looked like 2 men standing shoulder to shoulder. Mom's asleep, he said. Good for her. He pulled out the chair opposite mine. I know this got handled badly. Was there a version where it was handled well? Yes, if I'd had time to explain before she sent the email. The problem is, the email reached me too soon? That's not what I said. It's what you keep saying. He leaned forward. I have a chance to own part of the company I've spent 4 years building. Alan built it. I helped grow it. Then why can't the company finance your buy-in? His eyes dropped to the dark tabletop. That's a reasonable question, I said. Alan wants commitment. $120,000 of commitment? That's how partnerships work. How would I know? You didn't tell me you were being offered one. Because you'd focus on every reason it could go wrong. Someone should. You see, that right there. He sat back as if I had proven something. Outside, the security light clicked on over the driveway. A moth battered itself against the fixture, flashing in and out of view. What happened to your savings? I asked. We had a bad quarter. You're a consultant. Who is we? My practice. You told me last month was your best month since October. Revenue isn't cash. You made fun of me for saying that when I fixed your invoices. I didn't make fun of you. You called me the accounts receivable seductress. I was trying to make you laugh. I laughed because I thought we were on the same team. He stared at me, and for a moment the anger left his face. He looked tired and scared, and almost like the man who used to drop his keys into my mother's bowl just to hear it ring. I need you with me on this, he said. Then stand with me in the morning and tell your mother she doesn't run our house. I can talk to her about the wording. That wasn't my condition. Nora, tell her. If I humiliate her now, she could walk away from the loan. There it was, clean at last. He needed my obedience because he had spent money he didn't have, and Vivian had put a price on replacing it. I folded the throw blanket over my knees. Close the door when you leave. The next morning, the green bowl was gone. I found it inside the clear bin, marked Nora, Review, wrapped in one of my own dish towels. Vivian had replaced it with a shallow silver tray. She was at the stove cooking eggs. Graham sat at the island reading something on his phone. I unwrapped the bowl and returned it to the entry table. Vivian flipped an egg. The silver is less distracting. Then put it in your room. It's Waterford. It's ugly. Graham lowered his phone. Can we not start? We started Sunday, I said. I put the silver tray on the bed beside Vivian's handbag. At 9, I changed the deposit instructions for the salary I paid myself through my business. My next check would go into the personal account I had kept since before the wedding instead of our joint checking. I left enough to cover my half of the mortgage, utilities, insurance, and Inez's wages. Then I emailed the landscaper, grocery service, wine shop, and cleaning supplier. Any new recurring charge needed written approval from both household account holders. I didn't cancel Graham's life. I stopped operating it. At 11, Vivian walked into the breakfast room carrying 2 men's shirts. Do you know if these go to the cleaner? I'm working." Graham left them on the chair. "Then ask Graham. He's with a client. So am I." My client, Denise Carver, was visible on my laptop screen. She raised one eyebrow. Vivian noticed her and lowered her voice. "The collar has a stain. I don't know what to tell you. You usually handle his dry cleaning. Not anymore." She stood there long enough to make the silence physical, then left. Denise waited until the glass door closed. "New assistant?" "Hostile takeover. Should I call the authorities?" "Only if they enforce office hours." She laughed, and I did too. For the rest of the call, I almost felt normal. The setback came an hour later. I went to the garage for a sample case and returned to find my presentation boards leaning in the hallway. Vivian had moved a folding table into the breakfast room and spread her condo documents across it. "I have a conference call," she said. So did I. "You weren't in here." "For 4 minutes. I need privacy." I picked up her folders. She rose. "Do not touch those. Then don't put them in my office. This is not an office, it's a breakfast room." I carried the folders into the guest room and set them on her bed. By the time I returned, she had called Graham. He arrived home 40 minutes later. "You moved Mom's financial documents without permission?" "She moved my work because you've taken over the room. I've worked in there for 6 years. It was never supposed to become permanent. That stopped me." "According to whom?" He looked at Vivian. She looked away. Thursday's dinner began to take shape around me as if I had agreed to it. Wine arrived Wednesday afternoon. Vivian ordered place cards. Graham texted a list of dietary restrictions and ended with, "Mom says cream linens, but use your judgment." I replied, "I'm not hosting your dinner." He sent back, "Can we discuss tonight?" There was nothing to discuss, so I didn't. At 4:30 Thursday, I came home from the venue carrying takeout and found Vivian standing in the dining room beside a bare table. "Where are the linens?" she asked. "In the linen closet." "And the flowers?" "At Saturday's event." "You haven't ordered any?" "No." Her face changed as understanding finally reached it. "You're really going to do this to Graham?" "It's his dinner. He told Alan you would design it. He should stop offering people things that belong to me." Graham came in 20 minutes later. The caterer Vivian had found that afternoon was unloading foil pans through the side door. One server had canceled. The other wanted to know where we kept the warming racks. Graham found me in the breakfast room eating noodles from the carton. He shut the glass door behind him. "You're making a point," he said. "I'm eating dinner. Alan will be here in 30 minutes. Then you should change your shirt." He looked down. A streak of sauce crossed his cuff. "What happened to us?" he asked. The question was so beautifully timed, I almost admired it. "You volunteered our house, my work, and my private life to your mother so she would finance your career." His eyes moved to the table. "What happened," I said, "is I found out." A car door slammed outside. Graham straightened, wiped his cuff with a napkin, and went to welcome the future he had arranged. I stayed behind the glass while his guests arrived. Through the wall, I saw Vivian point at the bare center of the table and make a helpless little circle with her hand. Then Inez's name appeared on my phone. She had forwarded another message from Vivian. "Please begin a complete inventory of Nora's clothes and personal effects tomorrow. We need to know what can be moved into storage before my condominium closes." The guest room arrangement will not work long term. Beneath it, Inez had written one sentence. "Did Graham tell you his mother plans to stay permanently?" I read it twice, though the words did not improve. Through the glass wall, Alan Decker stood in our dining room with one hand in his pocket, while Vivian tried to light taper candles that had already dripped wax onto the table. Graham was pouring wine too quickly. One of the caterers passed behind him carrying a foil pan with both oven mitts and an expression of private alarm. I typed to Inez, "Don't inventory anything. I'll call you tomorrow." Her answer came at once. "I wasn't going to. I clean houses. I don't prepare evidence." A shadow crossed my table. Alan stood outside the glass door, Smiling uncertainly, I set my phone face down. "Am I interrupting?" he asked. "I'm eating." He looked at the carton. "Those noodles smell better than what's happening in there." "Don't tell Vivian." "I'm afraid of Vivian." Healthy instinct. He laughed, then studied the sample boards against the wall. "Graham said you designed the dinner." "Graham says a lot of things when he wants them to be true." His smile faded at the edges. "I see." I waited for him to ask what I meant, but Alan had made a profession out of hearing the part people didn't say. He glanced through the glass at Graham. "He's nervous tonight." "He should be." "About the partnership?" "Among other things." Alan opened his mouth, reconsidered, then nodded toward my carton. "Save me some." He returned to the dining room. Graham watched him come back, then looked directly at me through the glass. I lifted another forkful of noodles. The dinner ended before 9. Vivian's last-minute caterer had mistaken her request for glazed salmon as glazed ham. The cream linens were still folded in the hall closet, and one of the place cards said Aaron instead of Alan. None of it was catastrophic. That was almost better. It was simply ordinary, expensive, and unimpressive. After Alan left, Graham came into the breakfast room and put both palms on my table. "You spoke to him." He asked about my noodles. "What did you tell him?" "That they were good." "Nora." "Did you tell him I was hosting tonight?" His eyes flicked toward the empty carton. "He knows you usually handle events." "Did you tell him?" "I said you were involved." "I wasn't." That became very clear. Vivian entered carrying 3 wine glasses by their stems. "Alan's wife has food allergies, and no one informed me." "She wasn't here," I said. "That is not the point." "Then I'm going to need you to locate the point." She set the glasses down hard enough to make them jump. "You deliberately embarrassed your husband." "No, I declined to rescue him from a promise he made without me." "You sat 10 feet away." "I was closer when he promised I'd obey your rules." Graham straightened. "Can we stop calling them that?" "What would you like me to call the 3-page document titled New Rules?" "Suggestions? Mandatory suggestions?" Vivian's gaze dropped to my phone. "Have you been speaking with Inez?" "She works for me." "She works in this house. She will not inventory my belongings." Graham's face tightened. "Who asked her to do that?" I turned the phone toward him. He read the email. His eyes moved once toward his mother. "Mom, we discussed clearing the guest room, not cataloging Nora's clothes. Her event supplies occupy half the closet. Her coats occupy the other half. Where am I supposed to put anything?" "In your condo," I said. Vivian's lips thinned. "My condo is being sold. And where are you going after that?" Graham stepped between us, not physically, but with his voice. "We haven't finalized the timeline. The email says this arrangement won't work long term. What arrangement will?" Vivian looked at her son. That was answer enough, but I wanted to hear him spend the words. Graham picked up one of the abandoned wine glasses and carried it to the kitchen. I followed. Vivian stayed by the table. "What did you promise her?" I asked. He turned on the faucet. "I said she would always have a place here. A place to visit. A place. The guest room. She's loaning me most of what she gets from the condo. And you gave her permanent use of part of our house. I didn't give her ownership. You gave her my office. The breakfast room was never your office on paper." I almost laughed. "On what paper is it hers?" "Would you lower your voice?" Alan left. I'm not talking about Alan. Vivian had followed us. She stood beside the refrigerator with her arms folded. "I am not trying to displace you," she said. "I am protecting my future. By taking over mine. By ensuring I am not left without a home after helping my son. You have a home. I am selling it to fund an opportunity for this family. No, for Graham. My son's success benefits you." "Then why wasn't I allowed to know about it?" "Because," Graham said, "this is what happens." He gestured at me, the kitchen, the remains of dinner. "This?" I asked. You seize on the worst possible interpretation, and then nothing moves. You told your mother she could live here permanently. I said she'd have a place. You promised her the room where I work, you gave her a key, and you helped her write rules for me. I told you, I didn't write the rules. My phone buzzed. Inez had forwarded another email. This time, she had included the entire chain beneath Vivian's message. Near the bottom was a note from Graham sent 11 days earlier. For context, Nora is sensitive about the breakfast room. She uses it when she thinks I'm not hearing her, or when she says she needs somewhere safe to breathe. Don't challenge that directly. Frame the room changes around shared use and routine. She pushes back hard at first, but settles once things are in motion. Below that, he had pasted pieces of messages I had sent him during our worst argument the previous fall. I feel like this house keeps everyone comfortable, except me. I am tired of begging you to notice work that only becomes visible when I stop doing it. Sometimes I think you love the life around me more than you love me. The last message had been sent at 2 a.m. Graham had answered then with, I love you. Come back to bed. Now it was research for his mother. I held out the phone. He read the chain. The color left his face. Vivian stepped forward. Those were provided in confidence. Whose confidence? Nora, Graham said quietly. You gave her my messages. I was trying to help her understand where the pressure points were. Pressure points. That came out wrong. It came out perfectly. He reached for my arm. I moved back. I was trying to prevent exactly this kind of explosion. I looked around the kitchen. The faucet was running. I turned it off. I'm not exploding. That seemed to unsettle him more than if I had shouted. I slept behind the glass again, but I didn't sleep much. Near 3, Graham came downstairs. He stood outside the door without knocking. His reflection hovered over my own in the dark window. I'm sorry about the messages, he said. I kept my eyes closed. I shouldn't have sent them. The door opened. You shouldn't have needed to be told that. I felt trapped. So you gave your mother a map. She asked why we were struggling, and you told her the problem was me. I told her you were overwhelmed. You told her how to get past my objections. He sat on the edge of the other chair. I needed one thing to go right. Your business? Yes. What happened to your savings? He rubbed both hands over his face. Some of the client payments are further behind than I said. How far? 3 months. And I used the business card to cover payroll support and travel. You don't have employees, contract support. How much is on the card? 48. I opened my eyes. 1,000, he said. The room was blue-black around him. You have 35,000 in savings and 48,000 in debt. The partnership changes the numbers. If Alan knows. He looked at the floor. Does Alan know? He knows cash flow is uneven. Does he know the number? This is why I needed Thursday to go well. You needed my flowers to hide $48,000? I needed him to see stability. And Vivian needed to see obedience. That's not fair. No, it isn't. Friday morning, Inez arrived with 2 bakery coffees and a resignation letter. I found another house, she said. 3 mornings. Same neighborhood. They have one rule. What is it? Don't let the dog eat sponges. That seems reasonable. I can finish the month with you, not with her. I read the letter at the kitchen table. You don't have to finish. I need the money. I'll pay through the end of the month. You don't have to do that. I know. She studied me, then nodded once. Fine. But I'm cleaning today. I'm not taking charity from a woman whose baseboards look like these. I laughed into my coffee and then, without warning, I cried. Inez looked toward the guest room to make sure Vivian wasn't coming. She pulled a roll of paper towels from beneath the sink and handed me one sheet. These are expensive, I said. Your husband likes the thick ones. He does. Cry small. Vivian hired an agency cleaner that afternoon. The charge hit our joint account before the cleaner arrived. I sent Graham a screenshot and wrote that I would not contribute to services his mother hired. He replied with a photograph of a home equity application. "We need to talk tonight. Mom's condo closing may be delayed, and Alan needs the first installment this month." I stared at the picture until the numbers sharpened. He wanted a $60,000 line secured against our house. When he came home, the application was in his briefcase. He placed it on the dining table beside a pen. "This is temporary," he said. "No. You haven't read it. I read the part where our house secures your business debt. The interest rate is lower than the card. No. If Mom's closing happens on schedule, we pay it down immediately. And if it doesn't, it will. Then wait. Alan won't. Then Alan knows you're desperate." His face tightened. "I'm asking my wife to believe in me. You're asking your wife to collateralize the lie you told your partner. Vivian entered carrying folded towels. Alan is not being lied to. Then show him the credit card statement." Graham closed the application. "You want me to fail," he said. It hurt because some part of me did want the machinery to stop, even if stopping sounded like failure in his voice. "I want you to fail at using me," I said. The agency cleaner moved my samples the following Tuesday. Vivian scheduled her condo calls in the breakfast room, and during a presentation to a new client, she opened the glass door and said, "This is a family space. Nora has another office." I didn't. The client, a hospital foundation planning its annual benefit, ended the call early. The next morning, she sent a courteous email saying they had selected a firm with a more established production environment. The contract would have covered 3 months of studio rent. I read the rejection twice, then called a commercial agent whose card had been in my desk since spring. By Friday, I had signed for a small studio above a lighting showroom. It smelled faintly of cardboard and hot wiring, and the windows faced a brick wall, but the door locked. I moved my samples first, then the folding tables, linen bags, centerpiece hardware, laptop, client files, and the scarred oak chair I used during calls. Inez helped for 2 hours and charged me for 3 because, she said, stairs were a moral injury. Graham noticed the empty breakfast room that evening. "You moved out your business." "Yes." "Without discussing it. You discussed it with your mother. That's not the same." "No." I listened. He stood in the center of the room, looking smaller without my boards against the walls. "Are you leaving me?" he asked. I looked through the glass at Vivian labeling a kitchen drawer. "I'm leaving this arrangement." 2 days later, I rented a furnished apartment. Month to month. 1 bedroom, low ceilings, a narrow galley kitchen. It cost more than it should have and contained a gray couch that made a noise when anyone sat near the left cushion. I packed clothes, toiletries, work shoes, my mother's dish towels, and the green glass bowl. Graham watched me lift it from the entry table. "You love this house," he said. I did. "You'll come back once you calm down." That sentence made the final choice for me. I set the bowl carefully inside my bag. "You have 30 days, I said. "Get financing to buy my half at an independent appraisal, or we list the house." For the first time since Sunday, Graham looked afraid of a rule. 30 days? He said. "That's how long you gave me to adjust to your mother." "This is my home, too." "Yes." "That's why you have the option to buy me out." "With what money, Nora?" I looked at him. He heard himself and turned away. Vivian appeared at the kitchen entrance, holding a dish towel. She had stopped labeling things in order to listen. "You cannot force a sale because you're angry," she said. "I can request one because the marriage is ending." Graham turned back so fast he struck the entry table with his hip. The lamp rocked. His hand shot out and steadied it. "You don't mean that." "I've rented an apartment and moved my business." "You're making a dramatic point." "I signed leases. We can fix this. What are you willing to change?" He looked at his mother. It happened before he could stop himself. I lifted the bag containing the green bowl. "That," I said, "that is what our marriage protects." I walked out before he could explain why looking at her hadn't meant anything. For the first week, Graham called every night. He alternated between apology and administration as if one of them would eventually unlock the right response. He was sorry he had shared my messages, but could I send the password for the irrigation account? He understood why I needed space, but where did we keep the replacement vacuum bags? He shouldn't have given Vivian permanent access, but the power company had emailed me about autopay. I answered the practical questions that involved shared property. I ignored the arguments disguised as questions. Vivian emailed me her own proposal on Cream Digital Stationery. She suggested I return for a 60-day trial period, during which we would establish clear spheres of domestic responsibility. Her sphere included the kitchen, guest room, breakfast room, household staff, entertaining calendar, and standards of presentation. Mine included my bedroom, though she noted that married couples should not normalize separate sleeping. I replied with the contact information for the mediator Graham and I had agreed to use. Her next email contained one sentence: "Your pride will cost everyone more than you understand." I printed it and placed it with the rules. The independent appraiser came on a Wednesday morning. I met her at the house because my name was on the mortgage, and I wanted to hear her questions myself. Vivian opened the door before my key reached the lock. "You might have warned us," she said. "I sent Graham the appointment. He has a client meeting." "I know." The entry table held her silver tray again. No labels remained in the kitchen, but pale rectangles marked the cabinet doors where she had peeled them away. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and the lavender oil Vivian rubbed into her wrists. "Where's the green bowl?" she asked, glancing at my empty hands. "With me." She nodded as though this confirmed a diagnosis. The appraiser, a woman named Celeste, arrived carrying a tablet and a laser measure. Vivian followed us through every room, offering improvements to the facts. The guest room was an executive suite. The chipped bathroom tile was artisan. The breakfast room was flexible, formal space. When Celeste asked whether the folding tables and event supplies had been removed for staging, Vivian said, "My daughter-in-law operated a business from here without proper boundaries." Celeste aimed the laser at the far wall. "I just need the dimensions." I nearly liked her. Graham arrived as we were measuring the garage. His tie was crooked and his face had the waxy look he got after too much coffee. "You came," he said to me. "It's an appraisal." "I know. I just meant," Celeste asked him where the water heater was. He took her to the utility closet. Vivian waited until they were out of earshot. "My buyer may terminate," she said. "Why?" "The building announced a special assessment. Her attorney is making noise." "I'm sorry." She searched my face for satisfaction and didn't find it. "If the sale fails, I cannot provide Graham's loan on the original schedule. Then you should tell him. He knows. And Alan? That man has no flexibility. He's offering part of his company to someone who can't afford it. Flexibility seems expensive." Vivian lowered her voice. "You think this is a lesson Graham deserves. I think it's a situation he created. You could solve it with one signature. By putting the house at risk. By believing in your husband. I believed him when he said his business was doing well." Her eyes shifted toward the utility closet. That was the first moment I understood that Graham had not told her everything either. "How much does he owe?" I asked. "I know about the card." "Do you know he has only $35,000 left?" She went still. "He told you more. He told me enough." "No," she said softly. "He told each of us what he needed us to know." Graham returned before she could ask another question. He saw our faces and looked from one to the other. "What?" Vivian smiled with only her mouth. "We'll discuss it later." The appraisal came back higher than the online estimate Graham had been using, and lower than the number I carried in my head when I imagined what our house was worth. My share of the equity was more than he could raise, even if Vivian's condo closed. His proposed buyout assumed I would accept 70% of the appraised amount in exchange for avoiding selling costs. At our first mediation session, he called that a compromise. The mediator, Ruth, sat at the end of a conference table with a yellow legal pad and the exhausted calm of someone who had watched many couples redefine arithmetic. "Why 70%?" she asked. "Because a sale costs both of us money," Graham said. "Commissions, repairs, staging, moving. Those costs would come out before division," Ruth said. "Exactly. I'm offering Nora certainty. You're asking me to absorb all the hypothetical costs myself," I said. Vivian had not been invited, but she sat in the waiting room. I could see one cream sleeve through the narrow window in the door. Graham slid a spreadsheet toward me. "Mom's offer depends on timing. Your offer depends on her money. It's still my offer. If she can withdraw it, it isn't." His jaw tightened. Ruth looked over the spreadsheet. "Does the proposed funding require Ms. Mercer to sign any loan documents? The home equity line would make the transaction easier." "No," I said. Graham closed his eyes. Ruth drew a line through one column. "Then it is not part of the available funding." "It could be," he said, "if Nora stopped treating every option like an attack. You used my messages to design a plan for getting around my objections." I apologized. "You apologized after I saw the messages. How else was I supposed to apologize for something you didn't know about?" Ruth set down her pen. Graham stared at the spreadsheet. A small laugh came out of him, dry and shocked. "Sorry," he said. That sounded different once I said it. It was the first honest thing he had given me in weeks. We took a break. I went to the restroom and stayed long enough to wash my hands twice. When I returned, voices were carrying through the waiting room door. "You said she would settle," Vivian said. I said I thought she would. "You assured me." I was wrong. "You were wrong about the credit card, too. Keep your voice down." "I am selling my home, Graham." "Then don't." "And watch you lose the partnership?" "I may have already lost it." Silence followed. I stood in the hall, one hand resting on the cold metal handle. "What did Alan say?" Vivian asked. "He gave me until Friday." "And if you miss it?" "He offers it to someone else." "Then call him and ask for another extension." "I've asked twice. You told me this was secured." "I told you what I believed." "No, you told me what would secure my cooperation." I returned to the conference room before they saw me. Graham came in alone 5 minutes later. The skin beneath his eyes looked bruised. "Alan moved the deadline?" I asked. He sat opposite me. "Apparently you and Mom are sharing notes now." "We noticed the same lie." He flinched. Ruth returned, and Graham agreed to list the house if he could not produce a full-price buyout by the end of the 30 days. No home equity loan, no discounted valuation. Optional spending from the joint account stopped immediately. Necessary repairs and selling costs would be divided equally and documented. The terms fit on 2 pages. Vivian's rules had needed 3. The buyer terminated her condo contract on Friday. Vivian decided not to relist until the building assessment was resolved. Without the sale proceeds, she offered Graham a smaller loan from her savings, but only if he gave her access to his business accounts, produced a repayment schedule, and met with an accountant she selected. He missed Alan's deadline. I learned that from Graham, not Alan. He left me a voice message at 11 that night. He offered it to Chen, he said. "I thought you'd want to know you won." His voice was thick, but not with alcohol. Graham rarely drank when he was upset. He reorganized drawers and sent emails. I listened twice before deleting it. Then I transferred my half of the mortgage into the joint account and paid the studio rent. The hospital foundation contract remained gone. My new studio had one window that rattled whenever delivery trucks passed below, and the lighting showroom tested chandeliers at random hours, making my ceiling flicker like a low-budget nightclub. I worked there anyway. Denise came by with coffee and stood in the middle of the room. "It has potential," she said. "It has outlets. Potential with outlets." I took smaller jobs for 2 months, an anniversary dinner, a retirement reception, a fundraising breakfast for an arts council. The money replaced only part of what I had lost, but every invoice went out on time because no one opened my door to ask about hangers. At the house, the work of selling exposed the difference between running a home and controlling one. The agent recommended removing half the furniture, repainting the breakfast room, replacing the cracked guest bath tile, and clearing every closet. Vivian objected to each suggestion until she understood that her belongings were the things being removed. "I cannot live out of boxes," she told Graham. He was kneeling beside a roll of packing tape. "Then go back to the condo. It's full of staging furniture. It's your home. You promised me a place here, and you promised me the loan." I was in the dining room reviewing the repair estimate. Neither had noticed me enter. Vivian's voice dropped. "Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I enjoyed selling the only home that was entirely mine?" "You're not selling it, because your building mess scared off the buyer." "My building mess? The assessment is not my fault." "No, but somehow everything else is mine." Vivian stared at him. Graham sat back on his heels. "Nora left because you took over. Nora left because you offered me authority you did not possess." He laughed once. "That's convenient. It is accurate. You wrote the rules. You gave me the information. You went through her closet. You asked me to make the house look stable for Alan. Their accusations passed between them like boxes neither wanted to carry. I stepped into the doorway. The painter needs an answer by 5. They both turned. For one strange second, they looked like allies again, united by embarrassment. "Approve it," Graham said. "Half comes from each of us." "I know how this works." He sounded tired rather than angry. Vivian picked up a roll of tape and left the room. The house went on the market without my event supplies, without her silver tray, and without labels on the cabinets. The entry table stood empty beneath the lamp. At the first open house, a couple admired the morning light in the breakfast room. At the second, someone complained about traffic. The first offer was too low. The second demanded a new roof. The third came from a pair of physicians who wanted a fast closing and the oak table in the breakfast room. Graham asked if I cared about the table. I ran my fingers over the pale scar from the roasting pan. "No," I said. "Let it belong to the room." We accepted the offer. After commissions, repairs, and the mortgage balance, each of us received less than Graham's first spreadsheet had promised. It was still enough for him to clear the worst of his business debt if he chose. It was enough for me to keep the studio and stop calculating rent in canceled centerpieces. The evening before closing, I went to the house for the last box from the hall closet. Graham was sitting on the floor in the empty living room, eating takeout from the container. The echo made every scrape of his fork sound larger. "Mom went back to the condo," he said. I nodded. "She fired the accountant she made me hire." "Why?" "He told her the loan was a bad idea." "That sounds useful." Graham smiled despite himself. It disappeared quickly. "I kept thinking she would make things easier," he said. "She always has, or I thought she did. She made them easier for you. At a price. You noticed when she charged you." He looked down at his food. "I deserve that," he said. I picked up my box. "Do you ever think we could try again?" he asked. "After all this is done?" I looked around the empty room. Without furniture, I could see the small marks we had stopped noticing. The dent from a New Year's champagne cork, the line where a bookcase had protected paint from the sun, the 2 tiny nail holes above the fireplace where we had argued for an hour about hanging a photograph. "I think you loved being taken care of," I said. "I think you loved me too. You just never found out which one you would protect until they were on opposite sides." His eyes filled, but he didn't look away. "I know now. You know what losing it feels like." "That isn't the same?" "No." He nodded slowly. At the door, he said, "I really thought you'd come around." "I know." It was the simplest truth between us. He had thought I would obey. I carried the last box to my car and left him his key until morning. After closing, I returned to my apartment. The gray couch groaned when I dropped my bag beside it. Afternoon light reached only halfway across the floor, stopping just short of the narrow entry table I had bought from the lighting showroom downstairs. My mother's green glass bowl sat in the center. For years, Graham's keys landing inside it had told me someone was home. I took my single key from my pocket and let it fall. The clear note rang through rooms governed by no one else.